This session is about native data types and Karate keywords. Before digging deep into Karate API automation, it is important to understand the concepts of native data types and few important keywords. Any programming language, what is the basic purpose of any programming language? I see a programming language, the basic way or the basic purpose is to collect the data, process the data, store the data, and transfer the data. I see any programming language like this. You pick any software application, it will deal with data. So there are different types of data that Karate also handles. Right? API is nothing but transferring the data from one point to the other point. So in transferring the data can be in multiple ways or multiple types. So this session is going to cover what types of data that the Karate API uses and how it uses, and few other important keywords before proceeding for the other API automation. So at a high level, this is the agenda for today's session. Switching back to the Maven project that we have created. So I'm going to create one more scenario by the name native data types. Just a recap, the runner file, it is triggered based on the tags tst. So it will pick all the tests which have the tag tst. So a new scenario is getting created and the tst tag is added. Given def name is equal to test user. Def is another keyword. This is used to define a variable or assign a variable with some value. So here I have created a variable by name and the value as test user. Anything which is specified under single quotes is considered as a string data type. So this is one of the data type, string. It is stored in a variable called name. Then print the name. So I am trying to print the name variable. So print is another keyword which prints the value that a particular variable is holding to the console. So when you try to execute in the console, you will see the logs. So in the logs, if you want to present the logs in a meaningful way so that the end user who executes the script will understand what is happening. So in between you can go with print statement if it is necessary. For practice, print keyword comes very handy. So you want to see what result it is trying to print, then you can directly use the print statement. So let us execute this. Let us remove this also. We'll see what is going to happen. Run as JUnit test, right? So if you see here, there are API test with text and there are two tests which are executed. One is get all objects API and the second one is native data types API. So these two tests are executed. Let us see the logs. So if you see the log here, the name is assigned with the value test user and I've tried to print here, right? So that is printed in the console. The value in the name is printed. So I have commented the above scenario so that you can examine only this scenario how it is printing. So you can print it in a more meaningful way. Something like this, if you want to print along with some text, the name of the value which is present in the variable is so and so value. Let me define another value as well. Qn defining some age equals to 42. So here I am defining a variable age whose value is 42. So Karate by default takes this as an integer value. Okay. And let us define few other variables as well. So this is coming as a float. So then I'm trying to print the values. We'll see how it is gonna print it. So I'm trying to print the age here. Similarly, I'll print the other variables also. Salary and big variable. So we have defined few variables and we are trying to print the variables in the console. So printing the variables is basically to understand how the Karate is interpreting the test data that we have provided. So we have seen few data types so far. One is string, which is in single quote, and the other is integer without decimal value. You don't have to specify the data type. By default, it will understand by the assignment operator here. If you provide an integer, it considers it as an data type. If you give in single quotes, it considers as the string data type. And if you provide in decimal part, it will consider as a float. So I'm trying to run the runner file with the tag tst. So this test alone will be picked. Yeah. So the salary is, okay, age is 42. Name, it is printed. Salary, it is printed. Okay, age we didn't print. That's okay. So salary is 432 or something. If you see the big variable, I have given a large number. So it is printing in a scientific notation. If you can see in the console logs, let me. If you see in the console logs, it is printed like this, right? So in order to avoid this, so this is a scientific notation that the Karate transforms the larger numbers to print on the console or to consider. To validate a response, you need to verify the exact value instead of the scientific notation. So in that case, there is something called Java functions you can directly use, which I have added here. So I'm just directly, BigDecimal is the class. So this is the package path which I will provide there. Now if you see here carefully, the number exactly it is printed here. This will come in handy when you try to validate some data in the response. More precisely, a number that you are trying to validate in the response, which is very huge. Let's see what else is left. Yes. So apart from these two variables, there are several special data types in Karate, which is JSON and XML. So API uses multiple data to transfer. It sends the data in particular formats. Most frequently seen or used format is a string or a text or an XML or a JSON file, right? So JSON file is a kind of file which holds data in a particular format, in a JavaScript object notation format. XML is a markup language, so it holds the data in the special format. Text file, it can contain data in a string format. So the three files. So JSON and XML are also native data types in Karate API automation along with integer, string and float. So let me create another scenario. Native data types, and here I give the native data types as JSON and XML. So these are the two data types. So let's see the basic format, how an XML or a JSON will look like. So simple JSON will look like this. So it starts with curly braces. So Karate understands that when you try to define a variable and assign a value which starts with curly braces, it considers it as a JSON native data type. If you try to give with arrows, left arrow or right arrow, then it considers it as an XML data type. So JSON can also be a simple array. So either curly brace or a square bracket. If you try to provide the data, then it considers it as a JSON. So let me assign a simple JSON format. So this is also a JSON file. It's a JSON array. So it also can be assigned. So we'll try to give an XML here. But the catch here is the XML or JSON should be in a single line. It should not go to the next line. So it will be something like this. It has to be. Okay. So you need to use define keyword to do this. Define. So what if, let me print this. Let us see these two things. So we have assigned a JSON variable J1 and an XML variable X2. So this is an XML and this is a JSON type. So these two are also native data types in similar lines with the integer, string and float in Karate. So let us print this. Let me comment this. So I'm commenting this test, just to make it the console logs more clear for us. See in the logs, the XML is printed in a pretty format. Pretty format is the format which is readable either for JSON or XML. So the JSON is also printed in a pretty format. It's a JSON array. If you observe here, we did not specify any data type to the Karate. But by default, when you try to assign a value in this particular format, for JSON, if you start with a square bracket or a curly bracket, then it understands that this is a JSON object. But if you try to provide a variable with a value starting with a left arrow, it understands that it is an XML object. So what if the JSON is very huge? So you can't queue that in a single line, isn't it? So it extends to so far that it makes it difficult to scroll to the right. So then Karate provides something called multi-line expression. So in triple quotes, you can copy paste the entire JSON file. Let us take the simple JSON. You can copy paste it. Then print. So print is to understand, as I mentioned before. Okay, to assign a variable with some value, you need to use define keyword, else it will throw an error. Now running this particular thing. See, the particular variable value is printed for the print statement. Okay, so this is called multi-line expression. This will work for XML or JSON. You can use either of them. If it is a simple JSON file, like simple JSON array, you can directly assign in this way. If it is a complex and a long JSON, then you just assign with the multi-line expression like this. So this is called multi-line expression. So you need to assign this value from the next line so that it will be enclosed in the triple quotes. Okay. So quick recap of this particular session. We started with the native data types. Native data types are basically used in any programming language as a primitive data types. So Karate also has a set of native data types starting with integer, float, string, and JSON and XML. So to assign and define a value, DEF, define keyword is used. So define keyword should be used along with the assignment operator. So you are trying to assign a value to a particular variable. That value or the data can be in either of the mentioned data types. So to assign a value to a variable, you need to use the define keyword. And another keyword that is discussed is print. To print something to a console, you can use the print keyword and the variable name. To print in a more meaningful way, you can add the information what you are trying to print in single quotes and give a comma and print the variable and give the variable. So this prints the log with some meaningful information to the end user who is reading the scripts and logs. And then the JSON and XML data types are discussed. So JSON can be starting with either a square bracket or starting with a curly bracket. It can be a simple JSON array as well. So this is a simple JSON array. And coming to the XML object, XML data type, it should start with the left hand symbol, left arrow symbol, and so on. It can be also a simple XML or it can be a complex XML. Complex XML is multi-nested and multi-deep rooted XMLs. So that complex XMLs, how to process and how to handle the test data, we'll see in the next sessions. But for this session, these are the topics. Let me check if everything is covered. Yes, one more mention: when you are trying to handle some big numbers, you go with the BigDecimal class instead of directly assigning the values. Because if you directly assign the values in Karate, it is converted automatically into scientific notation.